Throughout history, the story repeats itself with an eerie precision. Rome, France, and the Soviet Union all followed the same six-stage path of military decline. At first, their strength seemed unshakable, their armies invincible, their empires untouchable. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming, invisible to those who trusted reputation over reality. And now the United States stands at the same crossroads. The pattern is unfolding before our eyes, and understanding it is the only way to see how history may repeat itself once again. The Roman legions were once the most feared force on earth. For centuries they conquered continents, toppling kingdoms and empires alike. Their discipline, their strategy, their sheer might seemed unstoppable. But over time, the foundations beneath that power began to crumble. Citizen soldiers dwindled, and Rome turned to foreign mercenaries who fought without loyalty, without passion. Armor grew lighter, training became rushed, and the once unbreakable military culture weakened. The world still feared Rome, still bowed to its reputation, yet inside, the legions were dying. And then came Adrianople, a single battle that would shatter the illusion of invincibility and set the empire on a path from which it could never recover. When Rome fell at Adrianople, the world saw only the immediate devastation, legions defeated, cities vulnerable, chaos spreading across the empire. But the deeper consequences were far more catastrophic. Within just a few decades, the Western Roman Empire crumbled entirely. The invincible army that had once commanded continents became powerless, leaving territories open to invasion and control by foreign rulers. Reputation had carried them for a time, masking the decay beneath, but once reality was revealed, the collapse accelerated, unstoppable and brutal. History was showing its first lesson. Strength on paper means nothing if the foundation has rotted from within. After the horrors of World War I, France stood proud with what many believed was the strongest army in Europe. The Maginot Line stretched across the border, a fortress that promised to repel any invasion. Generals boasted of their defenses, nations relied on them, and the world saw an image of invincibility. But beneath the surface, cracks had begun to show. Military doctrine had stagnated, tanks were scattered instead of concentrated, and the slow wheels of mobilization could not keep pace with innovation. Germany's blitzkrieg moved with speed and precision, and in just 6 weeks, the myth of French invincibility collapsed. France teaches a chilling lesson. Reputation can carry an army only so far. The world still believed in its strength, yet when faced with innovation and real-world testing, the gaps were exposed. Tanks were plentiful, soldiers were trained, but strategy and adaptability had decayed. Glory from the past blinded the generals to reality, and when the first test came, the illusion shattered. It was a stark reminder that military power is not just numbers or equipment. It is doctrine, readiness, and the ability to adapt when the world moves faster than you expect. The Soviet Union in 1979 was a colossus. Millions of soldiers, tanks as far as the eye could see, nuclear weapons that could shake the world. Their dominance seemed unchallengeable. Yet when they invaded Afghanistan, their confidence met an enemy they could not control. Rugged mountains, guerrilla fighters, and a population determined to resist turned what should have been a quick campaign into a decade-long disaster. Corruption, low morale, and logistical failures tore at the heart of the military. By the time they withdrew, the illusion of invincibility was gone, and with it, the grip on an empire that had once seemed eternal began to unravel. 3 empires, separated by centuries, yet their stories mirror each other with uncanny precision. Rome, France, and the Soviet Union all followed the same destructive pattern. They reached peak military power, began an internal decline that went unnoticed, relied on reputation to mask weakness, suffered a first major defeat that exposed the truth, cascaded into further defeats, and ultimately lost the ability to project power. The sequence is not random, it is a blueprint of collapse. Understanding this pattern is the key to seeing where the United States stands today. America's rise to unmatched military dominance seemed unstoppable. In 1991, during the Gulf War, the U.S. demonstrated peak power, annihilating the fourth-largest army on Earth with precision and speed. The world watched in awe as technology, training, and strategy combined to create an army unlike any other. But over time, cracks began to appear. Years of extended conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan stretched forces thin. Equipment aged while procurement lagged. The Navy shrank, the Army downsized, and yet reputation held. Allies still trusted American guarantees. Adversaries treaded carefully, and the illusion of strength endured. B-52 bombers from the 1950s still flew. The fleet numbers dwindled, and recruitment struggled, but the world still believed America's power was unmatched. After 20 years, $2 trillion, and decades of training, the Afghan military collapsed in just 11 days. Chaos engulfed the streets of Kabul as civilians and soldiers alike scrambled for safety. American forces carried out frantic evacuations, helicopters lifted desperate crowds, and billions in equipment were left behind. The world watched as the most advanced military on Earth was humbled by a lightly armed insurgency. In that moment, the illusion shattered. Reputation could no longer mask reality. Stage 4 had arrived, America's Adrianople, the turning point where the gap between power on paper and the truth on the ground became painfully clear. Afghanistan was just the beginning. The weaknesses revealed there were not isolated, they extended across the entire military. Readiness problems plagued the Air Force and Navy. Aging aircraft and ships strained operations, and decades-old equipment continued to serve well beyond its design life. The F-35 program lagged years behind schedule, billions over budget, and still faced critical flaws. The Army had fewer active-duty soldiers, and maintenance backlogs kept ships and planes grounded. The cracks were everywhere, and yet the reputation of American might continued to obscure them. History was giving a warning, and Stage 4 was spreading beyond a single battlefield. The world is watching closely. Allies are beginning to hedge their bets. Saudi Arabia strikes deals with China. The UAE buys weapons from Russia. South Korea develops its own nuclear deterrent. Every move signals a quiet loss of confidence. At the same time, adversaries sense weakness. They test boundaries, calculate risks, and wait for opportunities. The cracks in American dominance are no longer hidden. Stage 5 is looming, and the decisions made in the next years will determine whether the illusion of power survives or collapses entirely.
When Stage 5 begins, the world will shift in an instant. Enemies will move in multiple theaters at once, probing every weakness. Allies will question commitments. Some will abandon long-held partnerships. Taiwan could face Chinese pressure. Ukraine might see renewed aggression. The Strait of Hormuz could be contested, and North Korea could challenge South Korea. America would be stretched too thin, unable to respond everywhere at once. Once the cascade starts, momentum favors those who strike first, and the illusion of invincibility crumbles faster than anyone imagined. Stage 6 is the final reckoning. The military can no longer defend its global interests. Foreign bases close, and allies retreat or seek alternatives. The United States would be forced to pull back, defending only its homeland while former theaters of influence slip from control. The era of global dominance would end. History shows how quickly this unfolds. Rome took 32 years from first major defeat to total collapse. France in just 6 weeks, the Soviet Union in 2 years. The world moves faster now. Information spreads instantly, and Stage 6 could arrive even sooner than history predicts. Decline is not inevitable if it is recognized in time. History is unforgiving to those who ignore the warning signs. To prevent collapse, a military must admit its weaknesses, accept reality, and fundamentally restructure. Modernization cannot be delayed, and reliance on reputation alone is fatal. Rome, France, and the Soviet Union all believed their power was permanent. All ignored the cracks beneath, and all paid the ultimate price. The lesson is clear. Arrogance and denial accelerate collapse, while awareness and decisive action can alter the course of history. America stands at Stage 4, and the stakes could not be higher. The world watches every move, every decision, every sign of weakness. History has shown that once the first cracks appear, the cascade follows swiftly, leaving little time to recover. The future of American military dominance is not guaranteed. It hangs by a thread. What happens next will shape the balance of power for decades, and every moment of inaction brings the nation closer to a reality it may not be prepared to face. The pattern of history is written, and the warning signs are clear. To understand what happens when superpowers rise and fall, to see the lessons hidden in the past, you must stay informed. Watch closely as events unfold, reflect on the consequences of inaction, and consider the path forward. The story of America's military power is still being written, and every choice matters. Subscribe, follow the developments, and witness history in motion, because when Stage 5 begins, there will be no turning back.